Hello, I'm Walter, and we're going to do an English painting. This is an English watercolour, not a Maltese one. It looks at first glance like an Elm-Gallia. The colourway is the same. And we will display it with our Gallias. We've got 6 at the moment, Elm-Gallias, and it's interesting to see this colourway. So I'm going to just rattle through it, in no particular order. This is a good watercolour. I'm going to try and explain to you why it's a good watercolour. First thing about this picture is the subject is Venice, which is a very popular subject, and Burano, which is one of the nearby islands near Venice, and it's a piece of paper which is stuck to a board. And when we bought it, it had a very poor frame, and the frame had been made out of the remnants of a packing case. Probably the packing case the picture was sent to England in, because this picture has been to England and was sent back to Malta, not by me, by someone else. By chance, this picture was in Malta, in the same road I live in Nashar. And the packing case we've kept. I thought the packing case was charming, and when we had a frame, I told the framers to leave it. So we've got the original packing case with a letter saying it was in Burano, Nashar, saying it was exhibited in 1876, 5, I should say. It says the same thing here. Has a size, it tells us the artist, tells us it was varnished in 1969, and it was at one time in the Galloway collection. I don't know what the Galloway collection is. So it tells us about where it was been, where it started, and who's seen it, who did it, and the exhibition. And this is a very good start. If you see a picture with this sort of stuff on it, you know you're onto an important picture. And it would have been a shame to have had that covered, because that's part of the story, as I say. And we put it in this case. It's a frame, but it's a case, double-sided glass case, quite expensive, because it's suspended in the middle of the case, and in order to suspend it, they had to use a sheet of clear acrylic with a hole in it. So this panel with the picture on sits in between the 2 pieces of glass. It sits in a third sheet, a sheet of acrylic with a hole in it. So if you shake it, it won't migrate down in between them. It's not held by tension. The tension would break the glass because it's quite a heavy panel. So just to recap, it's a box frame, it has glass on both sides. In the centre, there's a sheet of clear plastic which has had a hole cut in it. The panel sits inside that hole, so it's in mid-air. And as a result, you get this very interesting effect. Some people won't like it. I think it's fine. It's very, very decorative, very useful, and certainly when it comes to selling a picture, if you can show people the back and the edges, you have a head start. So we'll look at the picture itself. The watercolour is a good watercolour, and the reason it is a good watercolour is because there are no outlines, and you'll think, oh, what is he talking about? Well, usually when you see a watercolour, the painter takes a sheet of paper and sketches blocks which they will later fill with colour, and that is not a proper watercolour. It is a sort of a watercolour sketch, if you like, but a proper watercolour doesn't have outlines on the edges, black outlines, because if you look outside at the street, the buildings don't have black outlines, trees don't have black outlines. The edge is merely a change in colour. There isn't this third aspect of a black outline. So if you look at the roof, you'll see you have the sky, and then you go straight from the sky to the colour of the roof. There is not this black line. And with a watercolour, if you put too much watercolour on, you can't take it off. It's not like a crayon where you can go over the top, or like a oil paint where you can scrape it off or go over the top. Once you commit to watercolour, that colour isn't going to move. And that is the skill. So I'll try to explain it again. There is a stack of hay, and there are 2 on the cube of hay. There are 2 different sides, one in the shade, and there are just 2 colours. There is not a black line between them, and that applies to all these roof lines here. It applies to everything except the stitches on the edge of the sail and some of the areas where there would perhaps be an outline of a sort, but there's no outline on those poplar trees on that island. There's no outline on the windows and as I say, the main block don't have the outline. That's a technical thing. No one ever talks about it, but that means that's a good watercolour. That means the artist is a good watercolourist. It's classical watercolour. And that's a really, really good picture. If you start looking around and you look for watercolours without black outlines, you can discard 99% of them. So it's a good watercolour technically. It's a large watercolour. It's a good subject. We know who did it. We know when it's from. It's Victorian. It's Grand Tourist. It's tail end of the Grand Tour in the traditional sense. And it shows Burano with the bell tower, the campanile, hay, gravel, sails. Wonderful thing. A fishing boat, they're pulling the nets in, and this is a distinctive gondola style boat. It's not a gondola, but it's a gondola shaped boat. And you have the lagoon, which is flat. You have a crescent moon, which is extremely unusual to see that sort of crescent moon just stuck in the middle of a picture like that. What else can I say? You've got the limpid sea, the lagoon, you've got this speckled deterioration. This is foxing on the paper. And by good fortune, much of the picture is ochre and golden, terracottas, browns, so it doesn't spoil it. In a scale of 1 to 10, it is faded and deteriorated perhaps by a factor of 7 out of 10. And when they get to an 8 or 9 or 10, they're not nice things to have, but because it is an even discoloration on a large picture, I think it's still a nice thing to have. So, okay, I think I've covered the basic description. Just one more thing. I'm looking at the colours. So when he's done this lagoon, this water, while he's had the brush in this sort of tealy green colour, he's done the spot on the sail, he's done the sails in the shade, and he's done the shutters. And when he's had the terracottas out, he's done the brick tile roofs in the shade, some of the rigging. When he's had some of the yellows, he's used that elsewhere. So that's not uncommon, and that's what you would expect to see with a painter who wants to get the job done. Okay, thanks for looking.